Hello and welcome to the first hospitality talks of 2025. I'm Katy Moses, I'm founder and MD of CAM, and I am joined today by Chairman and Portfolio NED and personal inspiration of my own, Ann Elliott. And if there is anybody out there who has been living under a rock for the last 20 years, shall I say, would you like to just tell the people out there who you are and what your background is?
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, 20 years. I'll take 20 years. I've been in hospitality a bit longer than that, really with a career focused on marketing. Was a board director at 31 with Pizza Hut when we were jointly owned by Whitbread and Yum. And since then went on to a range of marketing jobs and then founded my own agency. And then in COVID, got rid of the agency and now on boards and only in hospitality and absolutely love it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, who wouldn't want to work in hospitality? Now, I wanted you to be my first guest of 2025 because I know that you have some strong opinions and also just such a depth of knowledge of our industry. So I'd like to start with a little recap of 2024. What impressed you? I mean, it was a tough year, right? Well, they've all been tough years for the last sort of 4 or 5. But last year was a tough year, despite being sort of the other side of COVID. But there were still a lot of people that impressed me out there. Who caught your eye in 2024?
I think it's a mixture of who and what. I visited Battersea quite a few times, and I think it's such an inspirational scheme. And I admire the operators who took that first step to go in there, not knowing really what it was going to be. But I think Battersea is just amazing as a whole scheme. And I think the operators in there are really good, and they manage those huge numbers of people coming through on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, and they do it really well. So I think there's some great operators in there. On a tangent, I love the Top Jaw podcast, and
Yes.
I'm an avid fan.
Yes.
I just miss hearing him speak this year. But as a podcast, I think it's second to none. And he has some really fantastic inspirational guests on there, which are great.
I actually watched one this morning with Jamie Oliver on it, and I thought,
Oh, great.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, really inspirational, and also, but still done in that sort of fun and funky hospitality way. It's not sort of staid and recommendations and top tens, and yeah, it's done really well. I agree.
And it's cheeky, isn't it? And I look where he's going, and I think, yeah, I need to go there.
Yeah,
So I think he's
totally.
fantastic. The other day, well, before Christmas, I was just watching TV, some random stuff on it, and there was a coat ad. Now, it's such a long time since I've seen a hospitality brand, like that. I mean, you see QSR all the time, but seeing a casual dining brand advertised on TV, and it was a lovely ad. And it's a bold move because the returns you've got to get on TV advertising, are you going to match those you get from doing training or putting money into a new site? So I thought that was very bold, and I admired them for doing that.
Yeah, excellent.
You don't see that nowadays. JKS. I mean, I just adore JKS, and I think they just don't seem to get the recognition that they deserve in this sector.
No,
I just don't think they do, and I don't know why, but I think they are amazing. They're very focused, very dedicated, totally inspirational. They're brave.
Yes,
But they know what they're good at, but they just go for it, and they do everything just to the best degree. And I think they're fantastic. And what I like about them is their heart is in food. That's where they start.
Yes.
They don't start with let's just find around. They start with food, and I think they're great.
I do, and I like their brands. I like their attitude, and I also like how they seem to be. They're risk takers. They like to they seem to enjoy, pushing those boundaries, but they're doing it with insight behind them. They're not just sort of throwing stuff at the wall and hoping that sticks. And I think that's a joy. Well, for a researcher and yourself as well, that's a joy to watch. So yeah.
They know what works. They know what works. And there's just such nice people as well.
Totally. Well, and I'm in conversations with them at the moment to send somebody on the Hospitality Rides bike ride. So JKS, if you're out there, let this be my personal and public plea to you to send someone to Taiwan with us this year.
I'm sure they will.
Anyone else that you just want to sort of give a shout out to?
I love Martin Wollstonecraft. I always have
Ah,
done. And you know, in terms of what you do for charity, it's superb. But he's also out there. He's a great bloke, and he is a bloke.
yeah,
But with the support of Annie Opong behind him, it's a fantastic team, and I love what they've done.
yeah.
I like some of the moves that women have made in the sector this year. So Sarah Hills going into Roses, I think is great. And I love the fact that Lisa Buckley's gone into Brewdog.
Brewdog, yes.
Out there.
Yes, I saw both of those moves and thought,
Yeah,
interesting. Good,
yeah.
good.
So I think that's really good. I'm continuously impressed with the Newt.
Oh, yes.
I was going to book it this year for our wedding anniversary, and it was nearly £2,000 for 2 nights. I didn't book it, but I have been when it was £650 a night, and it's just exemplary. And at least I can say I've been twice, and it's the best ever.
Yeah, I've not, it's one that I've kind of heard of a little bit of background noise about, but I've not actually looked into yet. But maybe I'll do that when I'm feeling a little bit more flush rather than trying to look at something that's that expensive in
Steve to
January.
treat you, or you treat him.
Oh, hang on, you know my husband, you know that's not going to happen.
No, it's going to be down to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really worth it. I love Will Beckett and what he's done with Hawksmoor in the US.
Yeah,
And
I actually
just,
went to the New York branch last year. I went out and surprised a best
oh,
friend of mine who was living in New York for 3 months. And I spoke to Will and I said, look, I need a bit of a favor. She doesn't know I'm coming. Can I get her to, could she book a table there? But then the staff sort of smuggle me in and I deliver the cocktails to her.
oh no.
Which I did, and it was and Will and the team there just planned it. No, not only did they plan it meticulously, Anne, but they had cameras from 3 different angles in the restaurant, so they could get the whole thing for my friend and I to have as a memory. And
Oh, how wonderful.
it was just
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah, it really was wonderful.
Again,
It was a great brand.
I think when you look back, when you said to me, what do you like? The people I've met are really decent, good, kind, honest people with substantial values. And I think Will's one of those. Look, I'd written Wingstop innovative marketing, but actually I think innovative deal making, that's a great deal. It's a really, really good deal.
It is. It is. And
so-
actually, we've just started our first piece of work with Wingstop as well. So
well done.
it's been a brand I've wanted to work with for a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm really pleased. And it's great to be able to sort of like peek under, behind the doors, so to speak. And even when you're peeking behind the doors, it's such a great brand.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And the final one on my list was Stint, which is Sam Schlagman at Stint, who I think is another one of those who is fantastically innovative, really incredibly bright, got a great idea, and he'll make it happen. Yeah. So I love Stint too. So I've seen some fantastic things in 24. Really fantastic.
We always say there's so much innovation out there in our industry, and we also know that when times are tough, entrepreneurs and innovation comes to the forefront. And I think that never a truer word spoken than in hospitality. I think as an industry, it's just what we do. But it wasn't all fun and games, 2024, was it? What was disappointing?
I think the Labour government, to be honest, and I think there's a risk that they gave the impression they understood our sector and they understood business. And I think that's why we went along with them. And I think they have turned around and shot us in the head. And I don't know whether that was because our intelligence wasn't right or because they deliberately set out to dupe us, but I think they have. And the impact on our sector will be amazing, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
So, you just think you've got over COVID and all of that sort of stuff, and you just think, right, 24, 25, right, we're now back to where we were pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And then you're sat there having conversations going, now then this budget is going to cost us £2 million. What do we do? Do we not pay people? Do we get rid of people? Do we stop investment? Do we put our prices up? None of which is anything that anybody wanted to do. Yeah. And it was completely avoidable.
Yeah, and it was a shame because it felt to me like there was a real opportunity for a big government refresh, but also a refresh of the pressures on our sector.
Yes,
and it seems to me like it's just a missed opportunity for them to encourage a sector that brings so much to the UK and to the finances of the UK and the government. It seems to me like, if they can't find ways to change some of the the decisions they've made so far, they're going to turn around in a couple of years' time and say, wow, that was a missed opportunity for us.
Well, I think it is a missed opportunity, but I think it's even worse than that. I think it could have really devastating impact. And it's a distraction, and it's a very bad distraction that you can't do anything about.
Yeah.
And you can, but everything you do about it is negative. It's not positive in terms of business building.
Yeah.
And you've only to read the headlines in today's paper about people either cutting jobs,
Yes.
not taking people on. That you wonder if you went into this really positively, went into 25 feeling very positive, I think now you feel, right, this is very, very difficult. And the fact is the trust went very quickly in the government. So now I think, what else might they do that is really going to mess us up?
I agree. What looking forward then into 2025, government aside, you mentioned earlier about Sarah and Lisa going into their respective companies. What else are you looking forward to from like a female empowerment within the industry side of things? What do you think we can look forward to in 2025? Give me some good news.
Well, I mean, I was just reading this morning about D&D and Simon Wilkinson and the number of women he's got coming into his business. You look at what Robin Rowland's doing with Trispan and the number of women in his business.
Yes.
You look at Alan Morgan and what he's done with his business. So I think I'm hoping that there is a continuous move to get more women onto boards, because it's something I feel really passionate about. And I think if companies aren't doing that and aren't doing that consciously, they're missing a huge opportunity for diversity of thinking on a board. We'll see what happens with the states and their views on diversity of thinking, because I think they're going backwards. But I think as a minimum, you should be looking for 30% of your boards being made up of female members, because they drive success. And you speak to those leaders like the ones I've mentioned, and they know it. They know it. So I think that will be a good thing. And even with this government stuff that's happening, always you get entrepreneurs coming through who don't have any of the baggage, who just think, okay, well, it is what it is. I don't know what it used to be like. And you'll see, I think you'll continue to see the rise of entrepreneurs. And even now, you're just walking through high streets thinking, I didn't see that last month. I didn't see that 4 months ago. And that will happen. And that's entrepreneurs saying, no, I'll just give it a go, and not being hidebound by any baggage. And I think you'll see the rise of the entrepreneur in 25.
I think so. I think you're right. And as I said earlier, the hospitality industry lends itself to that entrepreneurial spirit anyway. And I think that those of us in it who would consider ourselves to be entrepreneurs, I think that we have a sort of feel the fear and do it anyway attitude. So therefore, whether the economy is in the bin or whether it's flying high, we're still going to go, right, well, look, this is what I'm built to do. I'm not built to toe the line. I'm not built to go and work in a 9 to 5 and be told what to do. And if I'm going to push some boundaries, I'm going to really push them.
So, and it's in my blood. So,
absolutely. And what are we hoping we don't see in 2025?
Well, I really don't want businesses, good businesses, to go under. And I think there's a bit about, but if you're successful, you should be able to see through what's happening and come out the other side of what's happening with the Labour government. But I think there's some businesses where it's difficult. And what do you do? I don't want to raise my prices. I don't want to stop investing. I don't want to not pay other people other than people on minimum wage. So I really hope those businesses can see it through, and the successful ones will. I've always had a career based on covers and footfall. Drive covers, drive footfall, and the rest will follow. And I think through this year, we've seen the opposite. We've seen covers in double-digit decline, and we've seen spend per head in growth. And I would like to see that trend reverse. I'd like to see growth back in the market in terms of footfall in 2025. And you look at what's happened at Christmas, it's been pretty good results across the sectors. So I'd like to see that continue. It probably won't, because of the pressures on spend per head. Prices are going to have to go up. I don't want to see the rise of the CVA, and I think the CVA is happening again. I can see CVAs happening. You just read the news this morning, don't you? And CVAs are happening.
Yeah.
And I don't think those are good for anybody.
No, I don't think so either. And it's demoralizing for everybody that's looking in from the outside when we get to that stage. And you, of course, have a very, personal and up close, up front position within a lot of businesses in the hospitality industry, because you are a portfolio NED, and you've got a real wide range of NED positions as well. Why do you love? I know that you love it. I know you enjoy it, and I know that you're fantastic at it. What is it that draws you towards being an NED?
It's interesting because Julian at Wireless Social tried to persuade me for quite a long time to be an NED, and I just fought against it because I thought it's a bit about what value am I going to add, and do I really? I hated village hall committees, and I thought boards would be, I'd be like that.
Yeah.
And they haven't been like that. They haven't been like that at all, and you can make a difference. Even it's subtle, they may turn around and go, that's a really, really great suggestion. And then 6 months later, come back and go, that drove 15% covers growth, but it's unlikely. So you have to accept as an NED that you're part of a team making a decision on a board, and you're helping them think about other alternatives. But you've got to go onto a board, even just arriving in the meeting, thinking my sole purpose here is to help the business do better.
Yeah.
I don't want the CEO job. I don't want another job. I'm not fighting a cause. My only justification for being here is, can I help, the boat move faster? How can I help the business be more successful? What can I do? What have I seen? What have I experienced that I can impart some wisdom or some thinking or some experience that can help them make a better decision, that can help make the business more successful. So it's very single-minded. And you've got nothing else. There's no, for me, that on none of the boards is it political.
No.
It's just, that's what you're going to do. And that's a joy. That clarity of thinking is a joy of just going in with one purpose and not being tied down with a lot of the politics. You do miss being part of a team, because you're not part of a team. You're part of a board, but it's not the team that makes things happen. But it's the joy of making a suggestion and letting it drop, just leaving it there, leaving it on the table, and then it's up to the board whether they want to pick that up and run with it.
Yeah.
And not getting excited if they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
being excited when you hear the results and thinking, oh yes, that was
maybe I said something, maybe I suggested something. Yeah. And I can imagine that gives a great feeling of satisfaction. And I know that I've spoken to quite a lot of people who are at the stage in their career where they are either thinking about being an NED, or they may have been offered their first NED. What skills do you think are absolutely non-negotiable that an NED has to have and specifically in hospitality?
I think you have to be very clear about what you're going to bring to a board. So where are your skills? Are you going to bring HR expertise? Are you going to bring finance expertise? Are you going to bring market? What is it? What role? Why should anybody take you? Because now you've got such a broad spectrum of people wanting to be NEDs, and it being more acceptable to be an NED, if you like, or it's more sought after. So I think you've got to be very clear. Why would anybody take you on? I mean, for me, I'm not a finance person, but I come very much from, what's the customer telling us? What's the customer voice? What's the customer journey? Where are we listening to the customer? Where are we not listening to the customer we should be doing? So I tend to come back, and I'm sure that sometimes I think, oh, Anne, will you get off that particular horse? But that's where my concern is. Are we really, truly listening to the customer? And what are we going to do about it? So I will sometimes bring boards back and say, let's just think about that. Let's just stop. So I think you've got to be clear about what you're going to bring. You've got to be a really good listener. You've got to accept you are not the voice. You are not leading this business. You are a contributor. And that board will take your advice or not. And if you get on a board and you find they're not listening, leave it. Yeah. Honestly, leave it, because it's not worth your time. If you think at the end of the day, they're not interested, they just want an NED because they need an NED, leave it. And work with people you like, because by the time you become an NED, honestly, you should be beyond working with people you really don't like.
Yeah.
That's fine in corporate, but don't do it as an NED.
Yeah.
So values right, what are you going to bring? Listen, choose your times to speak.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
be prepared to put ideas on the table and them not be taken up, or be taken up at some of the time and you won't know about it, only when you see the results.
Yeah, that's right. And that's when you can smile and sit back and think, I had something to do with that.
Something there, yeah. But you
So,
can't go back and go, I think I said that. It just
yeah, and it's getting passed
yeah.
off as someone else's idea. But it doesn't matter because you're safe in the
It's,
knowledge that you contributed in a
it
positive
doesn't
way.
matter, yeah.
So just finally, because I've enjoyed chatting to you so much, we've gone way over time, but I don't care because there's some such great advice there, and some great knowledge from you. Just looking into 2025, what are the messages that you're giving to the boards that you serve on, that you work with, and what would be your sort of final commentary to anybody out there that's looking at this and going, oh my God, Anne, what am I going to do in 2025?
I think the key thing in 2025 is going to be managing cash.
Right.
And it's, everybody understands P&L and what's happening in P&L, but you've got to be able to know you've got cash, because that's going to pay the bills. And we always say, don't we, that companies don't go under, through a P&L. They go through because they can't pay their teams or their suppliers.
Yeah.
So, and I think cash will be absolutely critical during 25. It really will be. And I think watch your overheads. I see it happening time and time again. People get to a certain stage and think, oh, we need a head of NHR, or we need a head of commercial, or we need a head of property. No, you don't.
Yeah.
Go back and really, could I somehow bring these in on a freelance basis? Because overheads walk through the door. That's it. So watch your cash, watch your overheads.
I
And I
also
think
think, sorry, just building on that idea of bringing in those freelancers or bringing in people from, that aren't permanent members of your team is something we've always done at CAM. And I feel that there's an additional benefit as well, not just from the overheads, but because of the knowledge that they bring from the other clients that they're working with. And they've got sort of a broader view of what's going on in our industry.
Yeah.
Rather than just like totally on what's going on in CAM, they know what's going on in other businesses, and obviously they don't give away any trade secrets, but they've just got a bit more of a 360 view, and I think that can be as invaluable as having somebody as a permanent team member.
I totally agree. And I think it's one of those things when you start building a business, you think, oh, I need people. And it's the number of times I speak to small business owners and they go, oh, I've now got 25 people, I've got 30 people. And you think that's irrelevant. What are the figures telling you about how your business is doing? And the number of people, really, I'd rather you said 10 and we're making more money than I've got 25 and making less money. So really think, do I need that person, or can I find that resource somewhere else? And you can find really, really good resource without having to go through all the costs and hassle of hiring, training, inducting, firing.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. And then I think the third thing for 25 is just going to be very, very aware of your customers and what's happening. And you've got a division. You've got a division north-south. You've got a division poor and not so poor. Just make sure you know exactly who your customer is and what they're going to experience in 25 and why they should use you as a brand.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact is the customer should be the center of every single decision we make anyway, but we've got to be even closer to them this year if we want to get through the challenges and the headwinds that are facing us.
Yeah.
Ann Elliott, one of my favorite people to talk to in the whole of the hospitality industry. Thank you so much.
You say that to everybody, Katie.
Don't actually. I don't. I've known you for so long, and I never come away from a conversation with you without sort of thinking, I learned something then, or I've got an idea about something. See, there you go. So you're an NED even when you're not trying to be. Thank you so much for your time and for being the first guest of 2025 for Hospitality Talk.
Great.